Well, time for another little update. Been a little while, but not tons of things to show. One of the things I think since last time that we did figure out was I don't remember if I mentioned it last time or not, but there have been times we were smelling a gas smell sometimes after getting out of the car and whatnot, and finally figured out that was getting a leak in the one of the injectors over here on the driver's side. One of the O-rings was leaking a little bit, and so it was dumping gas down in the valley. We never saw anything on the ground is because it was dumping it down in the valley and then, of course, evaporating. So I pulled them off and I checked. I pulled it off, had to pull the supercharger and everything off to get at this rail. And I pulled them all off, and there were a couple that were nicked. One was bad when I was putting it in, the O ring. The other ones were just a little bit, so I ended up replacing, I think, most of the O rings on it, and that seemed to help out. After that, we weren't getting any more gas in the valley, and was not having any more issues with that. It did help a little bit with some of the pressure, the fuel pressure, and a little bit with some of the O2 sensor stuff we were seeing. Not a lot, but it seemed it did help a little bit. And like I said, at least there's no gas leaking now in there, so that definitely is better. Still fighting some tuning issues as far as the difference between bank 1 and bank 2. Sometimes they're dead on, sometimes they're 10, 12, 15% off, which from my understanding they should be maybe 5% at the most variance, but they are seeming to be different there. So just been checking different things like that. Oh, one thing I did find when I pulled the supercharger off, this must have happened when I first started it and when the rings were sealing and stuff like that. But sometimes we had been noticing that, when you back out of the garage, that you would get a little bit of like smoke, coming out from around the hood here. And couldn't really figure out what was going on with that. Wasn't seeing a leak or whatever. But I think I found out what it was, that when I pulled the supercharger off to get at the rails, like I said, in the valley, behind the throttle body, there was a big puddle of oil there. And so, and I've only had to put a little bit of oil in, just a little bit, maybe quarter of a quart, half a quart, since I, got rid of the break-in oil and stuff like that. And so I'm thinking that's where it ended up. Some oil got inside of there, past the rings at one point. But like I said, I'm not using tons of oil, so I think that might have been just a one-time thing. And that's probably where the smoke was coming from, as it was, dripping out or something like that. So also took care of that. Been just having some, like I said, a lot of random issues. Thought the O2 sensors were bad, so I just replaced those on Friday, both of them, and decided, instead of going aftermarket, I went back and got them from Ford just in case. I'd seen, a guy on YouTube talking about sometimes aftermarket ones, because they're not programmed, they're meant to be universal, not programmed specifically for the car, can be, there can be variances or stuff in them. So I did that. Again, seems to help a little bit, but not a lot. Have been driving the car though. I got over 2,000 miles on it now since the spring. Still fighting demons with the tuning issues. It runs super lean, runs super rich, kind of back and forth. You make a little adjustment, and it just doesn't. It seems to be having some consistency issues. We found out a couple of little things. I'm trying to think what else. So what happens when I don't do them every week. When I wait like a month, I'm trying to remember. There was something else that it was, but now I can't remember. Like I said, just been a few little things here and there. The one tuner that I was working with last fall that seemed to be really good, and we seemed like making progress, and then all of a sudden he disappeared on me. He, I guess, had some family or some personal stuff he had to deal with, but he's back after like 8 months. So I've been working with him some, but we're still struggling to figure out what's going on. That was what the other thing was. He thought maybe I was running too hot of plugs, because I thought I had TR7s in there, but I actually had TR6s, the stock plugs, heat range. And he's like, no, you should be running colder with that much horsepower. So I ended up replacing all the plugs with TR7s. Again, not a huge difference here. We're not really finding any kind of like smoking gun as to what the issue is. However, I did find that the one on the passenger side that had gotten messed up when the pistons were in backwards and stuff like that, that and I think I mentioned, they put that Healy coil in there, and then when I was changing plugs at one time, the Healy coil got messed up, so I got a set, the set from O'Reilly's to retap the threads, because it just didn't seem like when you go in there, they were like, the spark plug wasn't, it was just spinning, it wasn't holding. So I tried this tap thread kit. I thought these were Healy coils, but somebody else was telling me that these are called like time certs or something like that, because they're not exactly Healy coils. So I tried that, and I put some Loctite on that, which maybe I shouldn't have, and put it down in there to kind of hold it. But then one time when I was taking it out to check the plugs, it didn't want to come out, so I snapped it loose, and I think it left some of the plug or some of that time cert thing down inside there, so it wasn't tightening up very well. So I ended up using another one, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to try. Oh, actually, let me back up. That when I pulled it out, I noticed that the boot, if you look here, I kind of wiped it off so you may not be able to see, but this boot was kind of yellow down here. And if you kind of look, I'll move my hand there. If you kind of look at the plugs, and this is the plug from that one, how it's kind of yellow around here compared to the other ones. I don't think it was getting a good seal, and compression was going out from around it, which might have been some of the issues I was having with some of the other things. So I used another one of those time certs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna, if I strip it, I strip it. I'll deal with it. And so I kept going until basically she torqued down, and it didn't want to move anymore, and it seems to hold. And so I think things are better since then. That side was running really lean, and now it doesn't seem to be anymore. So I definitely think I was losing some compression and causing some issues with that on that side. That's a temporary fix for now. Maybe this winter I may take that head off and have it permanently fixed, but it seems to be working for the moment. So that was going on also over there, which I think was causing some issues. And while I was saying that, I just happened to be thinking about another thing, but it just escaped me right now. So like I said, just lots of little things we're trying to figure out and see what's going on with that. But it's driving. It drives. Again, it's not the greatest, but it does drive and stuff like that. Did find some things in the tune, some limits from the stock computer, because I had found that in fourth gear, when doing a pull, and you get about 5,000 RPMs, it would be pulling really good and then just lay over. That I ended up figuring out, I think, was some torque limitations in the system from the factory computer. So I increased the one torque driver demand by 30%, from 100% load or 1.0 to 200% load with the supercharger side of things. And now, after that, when you get on it in fourth gear, you could go above 5,000 RPMs and it was fine. And I knew it was not an RPM issue, because if I did it in third gear, I could go out to like 6,000 RPMs and it would just be totally fine. So it wasn't an RPM issue, it was something else. And of course, you have more torque in fourth gear versus third. So I think that is what it was that we found. Been getting some odd codes with some evaporation stuff, like talking about the tank, not enough pressure, or not able to bleed up the pressure in the tank, and that has to do with this valve back here, but it kind of comes and goes, so I'm just kind of keeping an eye on that. I may replace that eventually, but we'll see what's going on and what happens. So that's kind of what's going on, driving it, and I say got over 2,000 miles on it now, but still just trying to work out some gremlins yet, to get some drivability going, and just so I know that it's 100% reliable. So I have talked plenty long enough. This is a little bit longer than what I was anticipating, but I said it'd been about a month since I did it. Not a lot specifically to show, so I'd been kind of waiting till there was more something specific that I could talk about or do, because like I said, we've been just doing a lot of troubleshooting, trying to figure things out, and like I said, not anything necessarily mechanical to specifically show. But that's kind of where things are at. So thanks for watching, and that's about it. Thanks. Bye.